This video is going to cover the circumference and area of a circle. This should have been talked about before in previous math courses, but we're going to review this in order to talk about another topic following this video. So a circumference is just another name for the perimeter of a circle. So usually we don't call it perimeter, we just say circumference. There are a couple of variables that we're going to need for both area and circumference. So we're going to need the variable r for radius, and then sometimes we'll use d for the diameter. Okay. So for the circumference, we want to write the formula for it. So the formula for circumference is c equals 2 pi r. So 2 times the radius times pi. Pi is just going to be a symbol, and that's in your calculator. You can find that. Just take a bit of time to look for pi, but it's a really useful number that we're going to use for finding area, circumference, and then later topics as well. Another formula you can use for circumference is not 2, but it's pi times the diameter. Now if you think about it, these two formulas are the same. The diameter is actually twice as long as the radius. Okay, so if you were to look at this problem here, if I were to draw the radius, which is from the center to the outer rim of the circle, the diameter is actually just double that, because it's just going to extend the other way to make that straight line. So these two formulas are actually the same, just written in terms of the diameter or the radius. Okay. So we'll focus on some questions on the circumference first and transfer, and then talk about the area afterwards. So let's do a couple example problems. Let's say we are given the radius. Okay, so the radius here is, let's say, 5 centimeters, and we were asked to find the circumference. So with that, I'm just going to identify the variable I need. For circumference, the only variable you really need is r. So if you can find r, you are pretty much able to solve for the circumference. So the radius here is 5 centimeters. Okay, circumference equals 2 pi r. So I'm just going to plug in 5 in for the radius, meaning the circumference is 2 times pi times 5. Now pi is a symbol, but it refers to a number, an endless number. So we're just going to leave it on the side, and I'm going to multiply 2 and the 5 together to get 10 pi. Now this is an acceptable answer. Okay, so 10 pi centimeters. This is an acceptable answer because pi is actually a never-ending answer. So this is an actually more accurate answer than if you were to put it into the calculator. But if I'm asking for a decimal, then you can put it into Desmos, and you can type that out. You can do 10 times pi, and let's see what we get there. Let's round to the nearest 2 decimal places. So we'll do 10 pi, and we get the circumference equal to 31.42 if I round it centimeters. So that's the circumference. Now notice my units are in centimeters, not in centimeters squared, because we are talking about a length. So a centimeter is a length, like how far you're going. So let's see if we have a diameter. Let's see how that's different. So let's say I have a diameter, and the diameter is 22 inches. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. You can either find the radius from the diameter, or we can just use the diameter itself. Since we know that the circumference is diameter times pi, I'm just going to use diameter. Okay. So the diameter here is 22 inches, and circumference equals pi times my diameter. So circumference equals pi times 22. And 22 pi is an acceptable answer if we want an exact answer. But if I'm asking for a decimal, all we're doing is we're going to plug it into Desmos. And 22 pi equals 69.12 inches. Okay. So the image of the circle is actually not needed. What if we just have a statement that says I have 10 inches, 10-inch radius, and I'm asked to find their circumference. Well, with just that knowledge of the radius being 10, I can find the circumference. I'm going to use the same formula. I'm going to use c equals 2 pi r. My radius is 10, and I'll plug that in. C equals 2 times pi times 10. With that, I'm going to multiply the 2 and 10 together to get 20 pi, or it's approximately 62.83 inches. And that's the circumference. Our second topic in this video is going to be the area of a circle. So in an area of a circle, slightly different formula. It looks very similar. I get a lot of students get mixed up with it, so make sure we see the differences. So in the area of a circle, it is A equals pi r squared. Pi r squared. Okay. Now if you notice, this area formula has a square in it. It has a power of 2. In the circumference, there is no power of 2. So there are some differences that make it easier to indicate. So pay attention to those. Okay. Same thing. You only need the radius for the circumference. Okay. There is no formula with the diameter, but if you have the diameter, we'll see how we can do that to get the radius. So if I have, let's say for example, a radius of 7 units, that's all I really need. I can see that the radius here is 7. I have my area formula as pi r squared. So we'll do 7 plugged into the radius. A equals pi 7 squared. So if I'm going to simplify, I get A equals 49 pi. And notice I always put the number in front of pi, and that's just a common thing that we do. It's just more convenient to have the number in front and then pi afterwards. Okay. Now for the units for area, it's not just a length, it's an area, right? So we're going to use units squared when we talk about area. If we were to put that in the calculator, the area is approximately 153.94 units squared. Okay. Right? Another example, let's say I have a diameter instead. So in the diameter, let's say I have, again, let's use 22 then. Let's see the difference between 22 in the circumference and 22 in the area. Okay. So I have a diameter of 22, but if you notice, my area formula does not use the diameter, so we're going to use the radius. And the radius is just half of the diameter. So the diameter being 22, the radius will be 11. Okay. Area formula is pi r squared. So plugging in 11, I'll get pi times 11 squared, giving me 121 pi inches squared. With an approximate answer, A is approximately 380.13 inches squared. Alright, and lastly, just like the circumference, the image is just a nice visual, but we can do without the image as long as we have a radius. So let's say I have a radius equal to 4 centimeters, and we want to find the area. If we have the area formula and we have the radius, that's all we need. Area equals pi r squared. Area equals pi times 4 squared, giving me 16 pi centimeters squared for the exact answer. And an approximate answer of 50.27 centimeters squared. So this was a little review of circumference and area of a circle, and we're going to use these two topics in a later lesson as well.